This is an orientation video to the Brooklyn Center Fire Department fleet map for the new APX radios. The typical fleet map, you've seen it before. These are the positions, these are the number of talk groups that are in each zone, 1 through 16. These are your new zones. We no longer have A, B, C, and D zones. We have the ability to put more characters in. So we have a primary zone. That's where you're going to spend 99% of your time. We have a fire zone. Most everything in the fire zone is mutual aid related. Law zone, pretty obvious, law enforcement related. County zone for county related things, including Anoka County. Metro zone, that has the ME tax. The 8C zone has some national 800 megahertz talk groups and 800 megahertz SOAs in it. The 8C zone and then the 7C zone has the 700 megahertz SOAs. These two zones are required by standard in the state. And then we have the Minnesota zone. That's where your statewide talk groups are located. Going back to the primary zone, these are your typical talk groups that you're familiar with. HF main, our main, BC Ops 2. Then we have H-Fire 3 all the way to H-Fire 11. You're all familiar with those. We have new talk groups in here, BC Pool 1, 2, and 3. They replace BKC Common and BC Ops 4 and 5, which no longer exist. So these three talk groups, BC Pool 1, 2, and 3, we share those with the police department. They also have these three. So we could do internal interop, internal to the City of Brooklyn Center, with the police department. Public Works also has them. Of course, they only have 3 radios, and they don't use those on a daily basis, but they could use them. And in all of the city armor radios that are on 800 megahertz, they all will have BC Pool 1, 2, and 3. And then BC Ops 2 is repeated, and then you have Fire Emergency as the number 16. You'll note that we kept Fire Emergency in position 16 in all zones. And we kept the main in position 1 through all zones. In the portable radio, you can go from position 1 to 16 back and forth, and you're always going to get a dispatcher that way. If you're ever disoriented in smoke for some reason and you can't see your radio, you should know that if you go to one end or the other end, you're either on the main or you're on Fire Emergency. Back to the fire zone, we have BC Ops 2, BC Ops 3. We also have Ops 2 from Robbinsdale Fire, West Metro Fire, Brooklyn Park Fire. We have the Minneapolis Fire Channel 7, which is what they use for mutual aid when others come into their city typically. They could use it if they come into our city, but more than likely we'd probably be put on an ME TAC or possibly an H-Fire with Minneapolis. They do have both available. It's really dispatcher choice, or it's possibly incident commander choice, so you're just going to have to ask. We do have plenty of interoperability with any of our mutual aid partners. The Robbinsdale Ops 2, West Metro Ops 2, Brooklyn Park Ops 2, these are really for times in the absence of an interop talk group that you could contact them and tell them to clear our station if they're sitting there for mutual aid. That's really one of the purposes of them. There could be others, but that's just an example. We've added the Southwest Firegrounds, Southwest Fireground 2 through 7. The Southwest Firegrounds are used in Southwest Hennepin County, Edina, Eden Prairie, St. Louis Park. They use the Southwest Firegrounds. If we were to be requested for mutual aid, it could possibly be that we're assigned to Southwest Fireground. And then we have BC Ops 3, BC Ops 2 just repeated as filler. You'll see that often throughout the fleet map. I don't like to have blank spots in a fleet map, otherwise you'll just have a bonk That's not something that you want to hear. So some of these are fillers. So BCAPS 2 here and BCAPS 2 here, those are the same talk group, just repeated. Moving over to the law zone, again BCAPS 2, BCAPS 3, Hennepin East, and we also have Hennepin North and Hennepin South. These are the law enforcement mains. It's highly likely in the near future, probably in 2018, maybe 2019, that these talk groups will be encrypted and we will no longer be able to monitor them. That's just an FYI. Most of the law enforcement agencies are going fully encrypted, including their mains. It remains to be seen when that happens, because it takes all of the radio equipment to be changed out, and so it takes a little bit of time, and it also has to do with policy and procedure, how they're going to do it, because when they do interop with us, they still have to operate in the clear. They can't be encrypted when they have interop with us on a scene, so there's some process planning that needs to take place. We have SP call, that's State Patrol, that's statewide talk group. You can contact the State Patrol Dispatch Center either in Roseville, which covers metro area and the northern part of Minnesota, or in Rochester from there, SP call. And then SP 2500 and 2400, these are the east and west metro mains for State Patrol. This is Metro Transit West Main, and then we have BC Pool 1, 2, and 3 repeated again here in this area, and BC Ops 3 and BC Ops 2 repeated. Up here we have our typicals, the main, BC Ops 2, BC Ops 3. This is the county zone, so now we have county talk groups. These are county-wide talk groups. Every radio in Hennepin County has these. H-Common, every radio, including public health, everything. So it's a good one for planned events, and often you'll use H-Common and the H-Pool 1, 2, and 3 for planned events. H-Roam 1 is a statewide talk group that is available across the state. It's a Hennepin County specific talk group, only in Hennepin County radios, but it does work across the state. HTAC-3 is a tactical used by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. They often use that for various law enforcement reasons, and sometimes they'll ask for others to come and do interop on that talk group. Although we still have plenty of other options for interop, but HTAC-3, since it's a county, and we're in this county, we've kept that. Then we have the Anoka Fire Main, and then their tacticals A, B, C, and D. This most often, if we go to Fridley for mutual aid or anywhere else in Anoka County, we possibly could turn to these. It's highly likely, if we get requested through Hennepin Dispatch, that they'll probably assign an ME TAC anyways and patch it to one of those, assuming that we don't have it in our radio. But if they don't, or if we find that it's easier to go direct to the tactical, if it's known, these are available to us. It really is dispatcher discretion on how they do that. The dispatchers at Hennepin County do not keep tabs on who has what in their radio, so they're not going to know that we have these, and they'll probably assign some other metro region talk group for us to use. And of course BC Ops 2 and fire emergency are repeated. In the metro zone, we have the main BC Ops 2 and then ME TAC 1 through 10. These are the metro tacticals. Every radio in the metro region is required to have these, so any radio in the 9-county metro region, the 9 counties include Isani and Chisago. That is the metro region. These tactical talk groups work throughout all 9 counties and the adjacent counties. So these are the main metro talk groups that we will be using if we have to go for mutual aid, outside of our normal patterns. We could end up on one of those large-scale incidents specifically, or large-scale planned event. MET-EM is the Metro Emergency Manager talk group. It's hard to say if we'll get asked to go to that. From an emergency management perspective, our fire chief is the emergency management director for the city, so that was included in our fleet map for that reason. Then we have BCFs 3, BCFs 2, and fire emergency repeated. In the 8C zone, we used 8C and 7C because that is the standard in Hennepin County. I didn't have a choice in this in these naming conventions. Every radio in Hennepin County has these zones in it, so if you picks up someone else's radio, it's going to look the same. We have H Fire Main, and then we have 8 Call 90 and 8 TAC 91 through 94, and then they're repeated with a D at the end. So these 5 talk groups here are repeated channels, and these 5 talk groups here are direct, so radio to radio. So programming is a little different for both of them. These are national 800 megahertz talk groups, and as long as the infrastructure exists for them, and it does not throughout the country, but in different metro areas, as long as the infrastructure exists, these will work. So you could go to Los Angeles and they will have these. These are used nationally. And then we have the SOAs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Remember that an SOA is a scene of action talk group. Those are local radio to radio only. They do not hit the armor system. The dispatcher cannot hear you. They do not have those in their radio console, and they wouldn't work anyway. So if we go off of those are when we're under concrete, in a parking ramp, in a basement, in a tunnel, doing trench rescue, something like that, something where we have trouble actually hitting the armor system. We can go radio to radio with the SOAs. And these are 8 SOAs, so they're available for all users. So police have these, EMS has these, public health, public works. The 700 megahertz one, these are just 700 megahertz versus 800 megahertz. These are also SOAs. We do have infrastructure for the 700 megahertz layer in the metro. And then we have the FSOAs. The difference between the FSOAs and the 8 SOAs is that these two, FSOA 1 and FSOA 2, are designated only for the fire service. And that's so on the fire ground, if they're used like in a basement or that's so that we don't have the probability that somebody walks over a firefighter that may need help, that sort of thing. So they're designated for fire service only. That's why they're FSOA. The 8 SOAs are designated for everyone. And finally, we have the Minnesota zone. That's all your statewides. So we have STAC, statewide tactical 1 through 12. Dispatchers, these are dispatcher assigned, just like the METACs. METACs are dispatcher assigned. And then SEMTAC here, that's a statewide emergency management talk group for the same reasons we have the Metro Emergency Manager talk group over here. This is a new addition here. It's the Minnesota Duty Officer. If you need to call them, you can do it by radio. And by the way, the Minnesota Duty Officer is a small dispatch center that's located at the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in St. Paul. They're 24/7, as you know, and they're available by phone, and now we also have them available by radio. And then fire emergency is repeated down here.